Hi everyone, welcome to Future Ready Application Summit. My name is Sandeep Alur, and in Microsoft India, I head this group called Microsoft Technology Center. The topic for today is Metaverse, and yes, as you see on the slide right now, it's about enabling human connections in the Metaverse. Of course, Metaverse is the most spoken term in the current times, and every single business is out there to understand what is practically possible right now and what is the future experience we're talking about. I've had the privilege of hosting hundreds of customers at the Tech Center on the topic of Metaverse, and if there's one ask that is coming away is, hey, in my industry, help us understand how can we benefit from the Metaverse as a design thinking. Of course, largely everyone is busy getting acquainted with what is out of the possible, but going forward, some of the use cases that will be real for the industry or for the specific business or industry vertical is something we'll look at as we go along. Now, without much ado, let's get going. For the next 45 minutes, I'm going to take you through the journey that includes what is here and now, what is practically possible for to build an experience right now, and what is the possibility for the future, right? We'll look at both. Again, I'm going to share Microsoft point of view here, which is the platform offering that we have right now that will help you create experiences for here and now as well as the future. Now, one news item that caught my attention in recent past is, of course, in the world of NFTs, we're talking about people selling virtual objects in the virtual world, right? So this painting, or rather the collection of the first 5,000 days of one of the creator was sold for a whopping $69 million is absolutely real. Of course, this also gives an indication that yes, the creators economy has just begun and people are buying and selling significantly in the virtual world. Of course, that's the commerce angle of it. But before that, we have to understand the experience part of it. We'll get there right away. Now, if you look at in India, yes, a lot of firms have announced their arrival in the Metaverse. And of course, the reality is, yes, it's an experiment to a greater extent. It is about looking at, or rather giving an indication as a business that yes, we are in it and we're going to invest in this area. And as we go along, we'll only amplify the experience, right? It's a good move to start with, but of course, the world is at the juncture where majority of them are in the experimentation stage because platforms are still not there. They're all arriving, right? So hence, in that context, it's good to start an experiment right now, understand what is practically possible now, and look at what you can build as you go along in terms of experience itself. Let's look at this, right? I said the world is changing. It's a creator's economy, but of course, there are a lot of realistic but fun elements here. So if you look at this particular slide, now if you look at Ralph Lauren, considering the fact that yes, you need to enthuse your consumer base. Now they actually, again, if you look at the consumer base right now in the Metaverse, it's all about avatars, right? Avatars and holoportation, but when it comes to avatars, there is an element of a virtual wardrobe. Now Ralph Lauren actually collaborated with Snap and Bitmoji to launch the line of clothing for Snapchat users. And again, if you look at most of the brands, they're looking at how can they enable platforms with virtual wardrobe from their brand perspective. Again, another interesting fact here is if you look at Gucci, a virtual bag in the Metaverse, of course, virtual bag in Roblox was actually sold for a whopping $4,000, while the actual price of the bag was $3,200, right? Of course, this is a reality, right? We're talking about bragging rights in the digital world, and that's going to only increase from now on, looking at how NFTs have taken off in a significant fashion. Of course, one of the news you've heard from the financial world is JP Chase setting up their Metaverse in the Decentraland. Of course, all of these I'm trying to bring into perspective is because yes, lot is happening. They're all realistic in terms of how a business is looking at consumer experiences and engage them for the future, ensuring that what takes center stage is all the experience, right? Now, these are some fun facts and realistic facts, of course, and this also gives an indication that there's a lot happening in this world, yeah? But with that context, if you look at what's the next shift, of course, we're talking Metaverse for sure, but the genesis of that, right? We right now currently live in the world of mobile first and cloud first. It is not going to go, it's going to only get interesting and bigger and better from now on. If you look at 5G is around the corner. With 5G coming in, the mobile first experience is only going to be better, and that's going to elevate experiences significantly. Of course, in the last 24 months or so, we've seen the dire need for us to operate in a hybrid environment, be it remote learning, be it simulation, be it training people who are not there physically yet, but yet their presence can be felt. And of course, the need of the hour is to see how we can bring in a gaming experience into the corporate world. That means gamifying an experience for work as well as learn and play. Now, this is where the shift we're seeing significantly happening, and that has led to a new evolution in the world of computing, and that's Metaverse, right? We'll define what is Metaverse in a few seconds, but that's the elevation we're seeing in terms of experience going from mobile first, cloud first to spatial experience, which is all about 3D experiences, right? Now, let's look at this. There is more than one definition to the term Metaverse. And by the way, everything is right. There's nothing wrong about it, right? Because each of us have our own understanding of what is Metaverse. And I thought in this session, we'll first get to a common understanding in terms of what is a Metaverse in the first place, right? All these definitions, be it from Harvard Business Review or New York Times or VB, doesn't matter. So all of them are saying the same thing. But of course, there is a lot more English to the sentences. But my point is, before we get deeper into the topic, let's come to common understanding. And if you look at one thing you remember when it comes to Metaverse as a topic, from a definition point of view, is it's nothing more than a shared virtual 3-dimensional space, right? So once again, it's a shared 3-dimensional virtual space, and what you do inside that is specific to the business, right? You can connect with people, you can work, you can network, etc. So it doesn't matter. It's all business specific. But the point is, the definition is nothing beyond this. It's a shared 3-dimensional virtual space. Yeah. But let's take one step forward. Now, many times, a myth I want to break here is many times when you say Metaverse, people assume it's going to be AR or a VR for that matter, right? It's not. In fact, if you look at this statement underlined, the Metaverse experience is agnostic of form factor, right? Doesn't matter which form factor do you have, you can actually get into the Metaverse, right? For example, you may not have access to a head-mounted device, right? The short form used for head-mounted devices, HMDs. You may not have an HMD, but you may be using a laptop or a tablet, but you can still get into the Metaverse 3D space. Of course, experience will be 2D there, right? So if you're using a HMD, head-mounted device or a gear, you will, in the Metaverse, it's immersive, it's 3D experience. But if you're joining the Metaverse on a laptop or a tablet, it will be a 2-dimensional experience. Yeah. Now, I said earlier, I'll be using the term called AR, VR, and MR. It's interesting to know what each of them are, but let's look at this. Let's understand what each term literally means on the ground, right? You may know this, but it may be refresher, in the benefit of this topic, right? First things first. I'll be using mixed reality as a design thinking for most part of my presentation because that's here and now. Yeah. If you look at this visual, mixed reality is the perfect blend of physical world and virtual world, right? It's absolutely clear. There's no ambiguity here. But how do we experience this is what I'll take you through as we go along. But let's look at all three terms in unison, right? On the extreme right here, if you look at the VR experience, you're taking. If you look at the VR experience, we're talking about using head-mounted device, in this case a VR headgear, and VR headgears are dominantly opaque front end, right? You don't see the physical world when you wear a VR headgear. It is opaque in nature. Now, VR experience is all about moving into the digital world without looking at the physical world. You don't see the physical world when you wear a VR headgear, right? That's extreme other end, which is the VR experience. Extreme left-hand side, which is an augmented reality experience. That means you basically see the virtual objects in the physical world, but the only means for you to see that is through your mobile phone or a tablet, right, or a handheld device, right? That's where you experience augmented reality, right? Virtual objects in the physical world, but interactivity is only through your handheld device. That's AR for you. If you look at MR, which in the center, it's a perfect blend of virtual world in the physical world, right, or a virtual world and the physical world coexisting, and you can see virtual objects in the physical world. You can interact with it directly, right? The most popular mixed reality, or that is the only mixed reality headgear that's out there, is Microsoft HoloLens, right? And HoloLens is a device which will help us experience mixed reality, and we'll see if we experience as we go along, right? So, by the way, there's another term called XR, which is an umbrella term for all of these, which is called extended reality. Yeah. So we saw XR, VR, AR, and MR. So with that, we'll move forward. Now, by the way, many times one other reason why I put the slide is because many times when we say Metaverse, there's also an assumption that it's Web 3.0, right? So Web 3.0 and Metaverse are two parallel trails going on, and there's a lot of effort being done to see how Web3, the key tenets, the decentralized computing, how that can be the foundation for Metaverse to succeed in the far future, right? So that effort is active, but right now both are two different trails, and we're going to see how each of them complement in the near future. Now let's look at this. I mentioned earlier, yes, we'll see how each business will look at Metaverse experience. This is one classic evidence. This is from HCG oncology hospitals in India. They actually looked at two experiences, right? One is, of course, they used Metaverse, which is powered by a platform which is Mesh. I'll speak about it as we go along. And how can Mesh as a platform help doctors across different locations get into a shared three-dimensional virtual space and collaborate, right? This is one experience. As I said, Metaverse is all about 3D shared spaces. Yes, they were able to get on this common shared 3D space and discuss a tumor case, right? That's practically possible right now using the power of Mesh, and we'll speak more about that. And of course, another use case there was remote assistance in terms of how doctors could come across different locations and seek help doing real-time surgery. Now, the reason I put this up is to give an indication saying, yes, a lot of it is happening as we speak, right? It's practically possible in reality, and we'll see what is practically possible from a platform perspective. Second example I want to quote is Apollo Hospitals in India. In fact, Apollo has built an AI API called AI Cardiovascular Disease Risk Score for India, right? A lot of clinical records were used to build that AI model. That means you walk into Apollo Hospital, get your vital check done, and you actually give family history. The model actually comes back with a risk score which signifies the likelihood of anybody having a case of cardiovascular disease in the next 7 years, right? Now, of course, the risk score is a number, numerical value. How do we kind of explain to patients? That's where they invest in mixed reality experience, where they kind of visualize heart, right? So again, as I said, it's mixed reality, so you actually see the virtual objects in the physical world and interact with it. If you see the visual right here, there's a doctor and a patient, right? They're looking at the same object, right? And ability for doctor to explain specifics of why the heart may fail, or likelihood of a patient who is wearing the HoloLens right now to understand what happens internally, how they can work towards a treatment plan, is all very real for them, right? This is the experience we're talking about. So mixed reality has been there for some time, and so customers are looking how they can bring this experience in a B2B scenario or a B2B2C scenario, right? That's where we're seeing a significant shift happening in the industry. Now, of course, another healthcare example, one of a partner called Apocular. If you look at this visual, right, so there's a doctor wearing a HoloLens gear, and they're looking at an anatomy here of a head and neck. Now, there are two other faces here, part of the same discussion, so that they're actually remotely joining. So this is a classic evidence of how individuals would connect in the hybrid environment, right? When you're talking about enabling connections in the metaverse, enabling human connection in the metaverse, this is one of the example, right? So ability for doctors to kind of get in a common shared space and discuss a case, despite the fact that all three are in different locations, is practically possible today. Yeah, this is I thought of sharing these I would say evidences because yes, many things are real right now, right? While we always said that industry talks about the fact that for metaverse to be reality, it's going to take 5-6 years from now. It's real. That's absolutely right when somebody says that. But a lot of experience can build right now, right? We'll see what is that as we go along. Now, quickly, just to get thinking back again in terms of industry perspective, here, the most dominant players we're seeing right now is OpenSea, the world's largest NFT marketplace, Sandbox, Roblox, been there for some time, Decentraland, and Allspace VR, right? So most of the customers are experimenting in these platforms, and of course, Allspace VR is a Microsoft company. The social VR platform, you can absolutely go out and build a metaverse or build a shared space, invite people, and you can absolutely huddle right away, right? It's a free social VR platform, and of course, when I say social VR platform, it's not enterprise ready. There's no privacy, data security, but of course, if you want to experiment in terms of inviting your fellow colleagues and to understand how things work, and also, of course, you can make it private channel. That way, it is not visible to the outside world, so you can absolutely build something meaningful for your organization. By the way, this is my team meeting in the metaverse. I invited my, we do Friday morning meetings. I thought one of the Fridays we thought let's understand how effective, how meaningful this conversation. Yes, it was magical, right? All of us were in the metaverse. And this is a picture I took from my desktop, right? As I said earlier, you could log into the metaverse in any form factor. I use my laptop to log into the metaverse, which is Allspace VR 3D space. And yes, this is the picture I took, and I asked my team, hey, why don't you all look towards me? and they were looking at me and I took a picture, right? Isn't that cool? Yeah. Now, let's move forward. The question is, why Metaverse? Now, if you look at experience the last 2 to 3 decades, right? It's all about every innovation that has come to the fore. It's all about how to amplify human experience. It's all about human computer interaction. That's what it ends up as, right? So any experience you're talking about, be it Metaverse, anything else for that matter, it's all about human connections and eventual consumer's experience, right? In that context, yes, we are moving from 2D flat screen into 3D spaces, right? That means the Metaverse as the real experience we're talking about is immersive. Reason we say immersive is because yes, it's as good as being in the physical world and experiencing work, experiencing play, experiencing connections, and experiencing everything that we do in the physical world in the context of the virtual environment. Yeah. Now, let's look at this. When we say, as Microsoft, when we talk about a point of view, again, this is a design thinking in the making, right? So we talk about 4 things. It's people, places. Yes, when we say 3D spaces, it's all about how do we bring people into that space where each of us feel a sense of belonging. There is proximity today in terms of people's presence in the room, and that happens in the physical world seamlessly, but how do we enable in the virtual world? So people matters. Place is of prime importance because today every enterprise talking about how do we enable or how do we enhance social capital. Now, a sense of belonging will come in only if the place is relatable to you, right? Imagine I'm the tech center right now, and in the Metaverse, I can create a virtual replica of it. That means when I'm in the Metaverse, in this virtual equivalent, right, that means it's as good as me being here in the space. So the sense of belonging comes in, creeps in when you create spaces. That means platform should enable creation of places, which is up to one's creative mind, right? And when it comes to work, yes, things and place processes become central to how you work in the Metaverse, right? It's all about work when it comes to things and processes, and that's what is the true foundation of when somebody says, I'm working in the Metaverse, I'm working in 3D space, that means yes, work is getting done, and it's all about how do we light up that experience with processes and of course in terms of things all around in that physical virtual space. Now, we're talking about 3D spaces, we're talking about head-mounted device, right? Right. Today, you can't wear an HMD for a long time, right? Of course, immersive experience comes in with head-mounted device, which is, let's say, it can be HoloLens 2 or it can be Oculus Quest. But eventually, when somebody says Metaverse will be reality in the next 7 to 8 years, one of the reasons is also the form factor innovation. Unless it becomes like wearable glass, it's difficult to kind of wear that head-mounted device and be in that space for a long time, right? So hence, one of the innovations which is required, I'm sure is underway by many firms. I know for the fact that Microsoft's right now mixed reality headgear is 2nd generation. I'm sure more will come as we go along, but eventually expectation is the head-mounted device should become like a wearable glass for us to experience Metaverse seamlessly. Let's look at this. I said as Microsoft's point of view, we talk about 4 things. Number 1, the presence. Number 2, creating immersive worlds. That means you should be able to replicate the physical world in the virtual environment. And number 3, simulation, prediction, automation processes. I think the 4th one, in my view, the most important one, which is true to how as Microsoft we innovate, is to ensure that the platform is safe, secure, and open by design, right? Interoperability at its center. Yeah, let's look at each one of them. Now, when you say power of presence, today we talk about, we've seen avatars, right? When it comes to a lot of Metaverse experiences, right now you look at an avatar which is a caricature, a cartoon character, and of course we try our best to represent our authentic self in that avatar. And how do we bring the avatar close to the reality in terms of how the person looks, feels, and emotes? And number 2, holoportation, right? We're not too far from basically having a miniature me or having a digital equivalent of oneself, and how do we kind of holoport that hologram into the Metaverse? That means the people in the Metaverse feel as if you're there, your authentic self, the digital equivalent of you is there, and it is no different than your physical avatar, physical existence, right? So that's something which is not too far. Of course, 5G coming in will only make it better in terms of connectivity, and hence holoportation, which is high fidelity, right? Our holograms that we create are high fidelity. How that can be made real is something which is central to how Metaverse will succeed in the near and far future. Second, of course, is ability for us to create immersive worlds. Look at Minecraft, right? In Minecraft, it's all about creating those worlds. The question is, if I'm talking about, let's say Microsoft, right? I come to the campus here and I'm navigate through the campus physically and get to this tech center and I get to do my work. Now, of course, I invite customers in person here. So when that happens, yes, there is human connection. Now, if I'm moving to the same experience in the metaverse, I want to create a replica of this physical setup. That way, irrespective of where I am as an individual, if I'm hosting customers in the metaverse, it's relatable, right? I think that experience matters as we go along, and that's where creating immersive worlds becomes central to how metaverse will shape for the future. Number three, this is again, as I said earlier, it all depends on, while we're talking about people in place being central to any business, but when it comes to work, this is what makes it real. So when it comes to automation, simulation, predictions, bringing data and AI, all the stuff is something which you do as part of the work, and that's something which the metaverse as a design thinking will enable businesses to make it a reality. This is my most favorite because, see, having been playing around with this technology for almost 12 to 14 months right now, what matters most in the metaverse is safety and security. Safety and security of human identities, safety and security of human interactions, and safety and security of the things and processes we talk about, right? So as Microsoft, we're busy at work to make this a reality, because we heard from our CEO Satya also in the Build conference that this is central to how metaverse will shape for the future, right? So very, very important element in terms of how we are ensuring that the technology that we offer is enterprise grade with utmost focus on security. So let's shift gears, right? I said earlier, metaverse experience is agnostic of form factor. This visual represents that. This visual represents that, right? You can use any form factor of your choice. You can get into the metaverse experiences. Of course, experience varies. If you're wearing a head-mounted device, it will be 3D, otherwise 2D. Some of the metaverse use cases, if you look at the visual right now, there are B2B experiences and B2C experiences, right? If you look at brand engagement, virtual tours and concerts, they're all B2C engagements. If you look at remote assistance, training and learning, onboarding meetup, all B2B experience. So metaverse does give us a flexible and option to kind of scale when it comes to B2C and look at meaningful hurdles when it comes to B2B experiences. The question is, where is the industry heading, right? We've kind of seen so many experiences in the outside world, technology evolving, the need for hardware form factor to evolve also, but where is the industry heading? So as I said earlier, there are two trails, a B2B trail and a B2C trail. So now I'm a firm believer of the fact that looking at technology innovation so far, B2B will be the biggest beneficiaries to start with, because innovation is here and now. They can immensely benefit from that, and we'll see how that happens in the near future. So with that, let's shift gears. I said one of the key discussion for today is what is practically possible today and what is tomorrow and what is future, right? In terms of our point of view as Microsoft, there are three phases to how we're innovating as a platform provider. And if you look at this visual, what is practically possible today is digital twin and mixed reality, right? Leveraging the power of mixed reality, you can light up digital twins to be a lot more immersive, and we'll see a few examples as we go along. Number one. Number two, which is what we call as the tomorrow, is shared 3D experiences. When we say mixed reality and digital twin, they're all individual experiences, despite the fact that multiple people from different geographies can look at the same object, but they're not in the shared space, right? They're not in the shared space. So hence, it's still individual experiences when it comes to today. But of course, the transition we're doing is to move towards 3D spaces, and that's where we're talking about shared immersive experiences, and that's metaverse, right? And again, if you look at the far future, right, today, if there is one key thematic in everything we build, everything we'll do in the world of IT, is interoperability and openness, right? In that context, metaverse moving towards an open design, highly interoperable, because there'll be multiple metaverses, right? And as an individual, I will move from metaverse to metaverse with my identity and of course a virtual wardrobe, right? So we'll see how practical that is right now, and how this trail will shape as we go along, right? We'll look at that. So let's look at the first one, right? As I said, there are three parts to it. So let's look at the first one, which is mixed reality and digital twin. Now, this is where we'll bring in a few experience, the practical usage of it, and also by the way, the reality is MR has been there for some time now. And if you look at the reality here, yes, 1 in 3 enterprises support multi-experience platform. That means immersive experience is something which a lot of organizations have been tried for a long time, right? Of course, they're all becoming real right now because, of course, the fact that people have location independent, they're working from the place of choice, etc., and hence there's need for people to come together, and these experiences become very, very real in that context, right? Now, some of the proven enterprise use cases, by the way, they're all here and now, right? Nothing is for the future. You can absolutely use technology of today and light up the experience in terms of immersive training and simulation experiences, guides and task management, right? I'll show you a few examples of what are guides and what are remote assistants in terms of when it comes to people across geographies and how technology can bridge the skill gap, right? Design and prototyping, of course, in the B2B scenarios, how can people get to a shared space or even the mixed reality environment, even if it's individual experience, how can they come together and kind of look at virtual assets, right? Physical assets, creating that takes time, but virtual assets is easier to do it. How you can design prototyping considering 3D spaces is practically possible. You look at that. Right? A few examples in terms of how the trail of mixed reality has evolved in the recent past. And of course, the interesting one here is of the bottom right, the Case Western Reserve University. In fact, for the medical school, the medical students were not let inside the cadaver lab because of COVID, of course, right? So now, university actually built an app called Hollow Anatomy. This is basically a 3D experience when it comes to looking at anatomy. In fact, we have shown this experience to a lot of doctors, and the first impression we've got is, yes, you know what, wish we had something like this. Our learning would have been faster, and ability for us to assimilate knowledge would have been much more immersive, right? That's been the first impression, of course. As you see in the visual right now, this is a classic evidence of how students can go around the anatomy and look at in close proximity as if it's a real one, right? So moving on, some of the evidence is here, of course, there's a lot more to it. This is just to give you a glimpse that yes, be it manufacturing, healthcare, architecture, engineering, construction, retail, education, across the board, mixed reality has been used for some time now, and it's only getting better and bigger with modern innovations. Few examples again, as I said, B2B will be the biggest beneficiary to start with. We have a Cleveland clinic who use mixed reality for contextual overlay for surgical assistance, right? That means they overlay a CT and MRI on a patient's body for better visualization. There is Case Western Reserve, which is what I mentioned in terms of whole anatomy application. PTs in Howden, right? Digital twin in manufacturing. Now, when you are walking across a massive manufacturing setup and you want to understand what's happening in terms of the data and the assets which are functional, so mixed reality comes in handy there. Again, augmented reality, mixed reality come in handy here. With the final one, remote assistance. In fact, I'll show an example of remote assistance in terms of how you can bring skill gap across geographies. I said mixed reality, and I said it's here and now, and I said it's individual experience. Let's look at the first one. This is an example of a digital twin of windmill farm. As you see here on the screen, this is beautiful in its existence because it's a lot more immersive. Instead of seeing a textual data on a 2D screen, ability for you to kind of beautifully explore the spatial data, right, in terms of the windmills, and also, of course, what matters is ability for us to look at each windmill and look at associated data. At times, you may get an alert, right? It's not a one-way traffic, by the way. It's a duplex communication. That means, ability for you to kind of interact with it, send commands back is practically possible. If you see on the screen right now, you got an alert. That means you can look at the data. If something has gone wrong, if you want to send the reset command, you can absolutely do that, right? This is a classic example of mixed reality, powering digital twins, and the best part is somebody's ability to look at the digital twin at the comfort of their home, practically possible, right? Now, second example, this is Natuzzi, a furniture company in Italy, right? You walk into Natuzzi showroom and there's a design studio there. You basically get into a discussion with a designer, a miniature view of your living room setup in terms of where the furniture is, what color of the furniture, and where do you position it, etc. That's a discussion, right? It's an ideation activity. Now, once you decide the color combination, once you decide which furniture to buy, you want to see that in real, right? When you're seeing that in real, you want to see the real size of the furniture, not on a 2D screen, but in spatial 3D spaces, right? Now, this is where it gets interesting. Before you make a purchase, you actually see the true existence of this furniture in real, and you can go around and understand how it actually looks, right? Practically possible today in the power of mixed reality, right? Now, I earlier said, yes, this is phase one. That means the mixed reality digital twin, which is powering use cases like training, simulation, guides, etc. So let's look at a couple of experiences powered by Dynamic 365 business applications. Again, the foundation of mixed reality here. Now let's look at two scenarios: remote assistance and guides. Right, both come in handy across industry. We have seen healthcare, manufacturing, retail immensely benefit from this innovation. If you look at this visual right now, this is guides. By the way, this manager is actually creating a training module for a new journey using the tools given by us as part of Dynamic 365 guides. Now a new joinee comes in and she's expected to operate this particular engine, right? Now these commands are spatially anchored. That means in a factory floor, the person is actually guided to pick up a specific equipment. She also is getting a holographic assistant. That means before you assemble a specific asset, she gets to look at in which way this should be assembled. As you see right now, a holographic view comes in, and the best part is as you're going through steps, the manager here also gets a view of how good the training is happening. That means ability for one to look at efficacy of training and of course suggest retraining opportunities, right? This is about guides, again very immersive. I can tell you for the fact that in the midst of pandemic, where a lot of times, by the way, in the video you saw that the trainee is interacting with the physical asset. Not many times you have access to physical asset. So can you create a virtual replica? Absolutely. And can you train anyone on a virtual replica? Absolutely. So that's a reality. That means without going to the physical existence of that particular asset, you can train elsewhere looking at the virtual replica of that in a very immersive fashion. Second experience, remote assist. This is for to reduce skill gaps. See here, this lady is on the plant floor. She's expected to fix a switchboard. Something was wrong. She dials out some SMEs who are available as part of people who have the skill to kind of fix it. She dials this lady out, and she's on her laptop. By the way, if you look at the remote person joining in, she's on a mission, and this person on the floor get a holographic view of her, and the person remotely shares a blueprint of that particular switchboard. And this is the best part, right? She's having blueprint on the left hand side, and you're having a holography on the right hand side. These annotations are drawn by a person remotely, which is visible to the person in real on the floor in front of her. That's the best part. That means instead of giving voice commands saying move that wire, move this wire, you can actually point to that, and it's visible to this person on the floor, on the shop floor, practically in 3D space. I mean, that's the best part. In fact, one of the examples I quoted earlier in terms of HCG Hospital of Oncology is where they used remote assistants to actually offer assistance during real surgeries. This technology was used there. Yeah. Now these are absolutely real here and now, and we are seeing businesses use this across a lot of use cases in their industry. Now that's basically part one, by the way. When I said the three phases to our story today, yes, part one is mixed reality, and part two moving towards metaverse, shared experiences, right? Everything I showed so far, it's all individual experience, and they're not in shared space. By the way, when it comes to remote assist, it's individual experience, of course. They're in different spaces, they're not in common space. They're connecting just like how we're connecting today on Teams, etc. Right? Let's look at what near future holds good for all of us. And this is where I want to play a short video. This probably sums up in terms of where is the industry heading and what experiences we are looking at as Microsoft to offer for the ecosystem to create and experience. Now, the paradigm shift here is from individual to shared experiences, and let's look at the video and move forward from here.
Connection is a spark that gives our lives meaning. It drives us to seek out others who feel the same way.
Okay, why don't you input the data and we'll take a look together. Hey Mari, what you got for me?
To find those who share our views, yet offer different perspectives.
So this neck.
Look over here.
Challenge us with new ways of seeing.
That I think we should.
Deepen our understanding. And enrich our lives.
最后一笔的时候，往前。
Great things happen when we commit to something bigger than ourselves.
Take a closer look at it.
Place this here. Let's see how we go from there, okay?
This sense of collaboration and the feelings of connection it brings excites us.
Hey, just in time. I'm gonna move it slightly, okay?
It's yours, take it.
We have two planes right now on the same trajectory.
As we put people first, technology fades into the background and feels like anything but.
Aisha, what do you think?
I think if we had 330, maintaining 2800.
We'll be clear for approach.
Excellent.
This changes the way we see the world, and in turn, changes the world we see.
These numbers are looking great, actually.
There's promise in the possibilities, and what we see and create next will stretch the imagination.
Good morning, Sarah.
Morning.
Slowly coming towards the
A world without boundaries.
Good job. A lot better than yesterday.
Yeah.
Excellent. Slowly bring
A world where technology enhances, not limits, humanity. With people front, center, and in the spotlight. The future is here. And here can be anywhere. Introducing Microsoft Mesh.
Awesome. So that's a platform which is Microsoft Mesh, and we'll see what the platform offers right away. Now, if you saw the visual right now, a lot of experiences were showcased. Again, Mesh is a platform which helps us help the ecosystem create those experiences. Yeah. Now, let's look at these three things. Now, this is what you saw in the visual, but let's elaborate a bit on in terms of what platform gives out-of-the-box capabilities as you build experiences. Number one, feel the presence. You see this visual, there is a person joining remotely, and that's an avatar. Other person joining remotely, again, that person is shown as holoportation. So holoportation is practically possible today. It's just the question of the bandwidth and ability for us to create a hologram. So right now, what is practically available for you to experience is avatars, right? So, but the platform supports both. And number two, experience together. We can look at this as a multi-user experience, multi-sync, right? Multi-user sync. Now, there are two people who are physically there in the setup. There is a virtual representation of an automobile engine here, and the two people joining remotely. Now, by the way, if one of them says, hey, let's come and meet near the front left tire, everybody moves in their own space, and that's the multi-user thing we're talking about. It's practically possible, and that's magical when you experience it. Of course, number three, this is, in my view, is a defining moment. This is the foundation of how we're looking at it as a platform. Now, connect from anywhere, right? So what you build right now using Mesh is not specific to hardware. No, it's agnostic of form factor. You can use HoloLens to log into that metaverse. You can use a VR headgear like Oculus Quest or HTC Hive or HP Reverb G2, or it came in the tablet. So that means ability for you to create once and enable people access this metaverse, join the metaverse, multiple form factors. That's what Mesh gives you out of the box, right? Of course, Mesh is in private preview right now. It's not in public preview yet. But for the time being, if you look at what is our approach towards innovation, how are we offering the metaverse experience, that's what I'm taking to right now. Now, one other thought that was put across to the outside world by our CEO Satya in one of the conference recently is industrial metaverse, right? This happened in the Build conference. Now, ability for us to replicate digital twin. We saw digital twin earlier, a windmill farm. Now, how do we kind of bring in data, bring in the processes and simulation into the metaverse? And it's all about immersivity, right? Going forward, if you look at metaverse and digital twins, yes, we're talking about ability for us to be with the colleagues and experience and work in that fashion. Now, if you look at this visual as we speak, we spoke about, you saw earlier how mixed reality was used to light up a digital twin of a windmill farm. Now, we look at the same windmill here, right? This is an environment where you have other colleagues in the same shared space, and ability for you to look at things in real and take decisions practically every day is a reality, right? That means you'll be in an environment where it's a shared space, you can see colleagues join the same space, you can look at the same stuff and look at data and act upon it in a much faster fashion, as good as you being physically in a command center, right? One evidence I want to show you when you talk about industrial metaverse, this probably is a classic evidence of how Kawasaki Heavy Industries is looking at digital twin and eventually moving to a metaverse. Let's look at the video and move from there.
日本では我々ロボットを開発する人間にとってやはり子供のように親である我々開発者がちょっとしたその動きのおかしさにどれだけ気づくかってことは極めて大事な形。ロボットは実は止めちゃいけないんですね。ロボットはずっと働き続けないといけない。そういう使命を持ってますね。
現場でトラブルが発生した時ですね、生産が止まってしまうというそういったシステムの検討というものが非常に大変です。
Azureパーセプトを活用して今まで気づかなかったような故障であったりトラブルっていったものや予兆っていったものに気づけると考えております。遠隔地の方にエキスパートの方がいてくれるだけで一つの作業現場に技術力であったり知見っていったものを流すだけではなくて複数の作業場っていったところに提供しましてそうすることによって即時にトラブルシュートを迅速化できます。
それが、デジタルツインの世界ができますと実際現場に行かなくてもそのトラブルの状態が手に取るように分かってそこでもう直すことができると。そういったものがですね、仮想空間の中で全部調べれるようになります。
完全なるメタバースの世界は開発から設計ないしは試験までの全ての工程っていうものを仮想環境上で実行できます。
マイクロソフトさんとインダストリアルメタバースの世界をぜひ一緒に実現していきたいと考えています。
Awesome. Wasn't that cool? Ability for people to get into the shared space and get work done is going to be a lot more immersive as we go along. Let's look at, we spoke about Mesh as a platform, but what can Mesh enable? These are the experience we're talking about. You know, one is a B2B experience in terms of employees, and second is a B2C when it comes to customers. So this is the expanse of experience that you can offer as you go along. And again, it's left to one's creative thinking in terms of what experience you want to build for the future and looking at your customers, your consumers, and your employees. Now, as I said, platform gives all of the capability in terms of immersive experience, spatial maps, holographic rendering, and of course, multi-user thing. All of this out of the box. You don't have to worry about how do we enable these things, and you only focus on the thing that matters most, which is processes and things in the metaverse. So for now, what we've done as Microsoft is, while I said earlier, Mesh is in private preview, we've actually released an app called Microsoft Mesh App for HoloLens 2. Now, if you have access to HoloLens 2, you can experience it. So some of the experience I'm going to showcase right now is built, or rather enabled, through Mesh App for HoloLens 2, right? This is just to give you a glimpse saying, if you get access to Mesh in future, this is what you can create as you go along, yeah? Now, this is a visual of my colleague in the Metaverse, and we're trying to see, hi-fi.
Come.
Yeah, you heard the sound? Now, this is real,
Awesome.
right?
That
It's
was
a
a good
perfect
sound.
example of
Bye-bye.
physical world, virtual world coming together,
Bye.
and it's magical, right? That's where the experience are. Again, out of the box experience on the Mesh. Now, if you look at this one, this is again, we hosted one of our retail customers just to take the conversation forward in terms of what will the experience of the future when it comes to retail, right? So how can retail industry benefit from Metaverse? And this is just a glimpse of what is out of the possible. A lot of what you see is all fixed assets in the Metaverse, again, using the power of Mesh App HoloLens. The view that you see is, my view there, my view of what I'm seeing in front of me, in the Metaverse, and there's my colleague Vishaka in the call. You'll see her in the Metaverse. She was in Bangalore, I was in Mumbai, so we could have this experience in real. Yeah, those are all fixed assets, so it's not movable, but this is just to give you a glimpse of how physical world and virtual world comes together, right? Now, while I showcased all this, one of the innovation that's around the corner is Mesh, of course, and Mesh is also being used by Microsoft Teams. So if you're looking at how Teams will transcend into the future in terms of Metaverse, this is a classic evidence of how innovation is happening for Teams. Let's look at that. Now, the couple of experience which is very, very meaningful, expressive avatars and immersive spaces. Expressive avatars when it comes to, yes, there's video fatigue, and how do we ensure that we have a sense of belonging, we connect with people really well in the calls, because many times you might switch off the video, it's only a picture, but can you have expressive avatars? Answer is yes, and that's around the corner. Now, that's one. Second, of course, immersive spaces, right? If you look at this visual, yes, there's a real person and there's a virtual avatar. They're all interacting in the Metaverse, and it's absolutely magical, because end of the day, the emotions are through your voice signatures. The last thing, we spoke about 3, which is mixed reality for digital twin. We spoke about Metaverse, and finally, it's about interoperability, right? That's future, and we look at how what's happening there. Let's understand that topic in the first place. Earlier I mentioned about these 3 players, which is Roblox, Decentraland, and Sandbox, right? They're all major players in the world of gaming and Metaverse. Now, if I need to get into one of the spaces, of course, is powered by blockchain and cryptocurrency now, which is Ether. Now, I basically have to start with the wallet, right? And I have to create a wallet, and using the currency there, I'll eventually buy some collectibles, NFT, etc. Now, by the way, the drawback or a shortfall right now is none of these metaverses interoperate, right? The big deal is identity and interoperability, right? That means ability for me to have a decentralized identity with the virtual wardrobe, and I can move across metaverses, right? Today, if you are in Sandbox, you bought something in the Sandbox, you can't take it to Decentraland or Roblox, practically not possible. So future requires that this bridges have to be built, and that's where as Microsoft we're looking at how we can make metaverse a lot more immersive and interoperable. Right? So let's look at, in summary, while I spoke about 3 things, I spoke a lot in the last 40-45 minutes, but let's summarize this. Right? What is practically possible right now is, yes, if you look at 2 experiences, which is remote assist and guides, you can absolutely leverage the power of mixed reality and enable that for employees. As you go forward, express avatar immersive spaces are around the corner. So this is how Teams is taking us into the metaverse for immersive experience from flat screen to 3D spaces, right? And that's powered by mesh. And of course, we also spoke about what you can build right now with digital twins, right? Mixed reality digital twin as practically here, and it's been dominantly used in manufacturing, retail, healthcare across the globe. So that's something which you should explore right away if you've not already. And of course, the future is immersive worlds, and that's where Microsoft Mesh comes in handy to light up experience for the future, right? So with that, that's the end of this masterclass. As I said earlier, I want to bring in that perspective into what is practically possible today, what you can build an experience right now, and what is the future roadmap when it comes to platform innovations. I hope you enjoyed watching this, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions, but feel free to reach out to me offline. That's my contact details, and otherwise I wish you all a wonderful summit, and take care. Bye-bye.